Being dragged into the Elmheim estate, Aster knew damn well this wasn't going to be some cozy family reunion. The elders had hauled him in to face the music for the absolute wreck he made. The second his boots hit the floor, the air in the room grew suffocating. Right in front of the whole council, Zenas demanded Hefford prove his absolute loyalty by executing his own boy. But instead of caving in, Hefford chose Aster in a heartbeat, fully ready to let his entire bloodline burn to ashes. That exact second, the whole game flipped. Done playing the quiet victim, Aster ripped his shirt apart, exposing the glowing 7 wings permanently burned into his back. The elders totally froze their jaws, practically hitting the floor. Why did this flex absolutely terrify them? The answer is insane. Wing crests equal pure magic capacity, and not a single human in hundreds of years had ever unlocked 7 wings. That godly level of mana strictly belonged to the ancient spirit clan, the literal creators of the crests. So, how did our guy score this insane cheat code? Rewind to a freezing, brutal wasteland where a violently bleeding Aster drags himself toward his dad. His eyes are practically radiating pure murderous rage. He calls the old man out for tossing him into a deadly trap, and his dad just smirks and owns up to it. He brutally labels Aster a wingless mistake, claiming he needs to be wiped out before he embarrasses the Elmheim name any further. Let's get one thing straight about the Elmheim bloodline. They are the most notoriously overpowered martial clan on the map. Their literal day job is acting as the royal family's ultimate shield. Leading this powerhouse is Aster's father, Roderick Elmheim, the only living person in the kingdom, flexing 7 wings. Way back, he pulled a half-dead Aster out of a savage blizzard. To repay that lifesaver, Aster broke his back, doing every single thing Roderick commanded, yet he always felt utterly useless without a single wing to his name. See, a wing crest physically measures a person's raw mana, so more wings literally equal god-tier power. Being the one singular failure, in a ducal house full of prodigies, his siblings relentlessly bullied him as the wingless freak. Even with the disrespect, Aster gripped his sword and trained until his hands bled day in and day out, desperately praying that his insane grind would finally earn him some respect. Instead, he and his crew were tossed into a guaranteed suicide mission, though our boy somehow crawled out of hell alive. Now dripping with blood and running on fumes, his heart is consumed by pure venom for the father who threw him away like trash. Aster screams at Roderick, pouring out how he worshipped him, trusted him, only to catch a blade in the back as his reward. Roderick just laughs in his face. He sneers, asking what kind of delusional hopes a literal pawn dared to have before telling him to get lost, since his expiration date had arrived. Aster completely snaps. Fueled by blinding fury, he launches himself straight at Roderick, his blade aiming for blood. He curses his own stupidity for ever idolizing this monster, screaming internally at what a pathetic clown he had been. The sword slams into Roderick's body, but it doesn't leave a single damn scratch. Out of nowhere, a glowing mana blade locks Aster down from behind as 2 familiar figures step from the shadows. In a flash, one sadist completely severs his left arm, while the other violently hacks off his right leg. Aster screams in pure agony, crashing into the dirt, while coughing up mouthfuls of blood. And the attackers, his own twisted brothers. They stand over his mangled body, laughing at him, bleeding out in the snow, spitting that he will die the exact same wingless loser he always was. They even taunt his misery, mocking how perfectly pathetic he looks, dragging himself through the dirt. Choking on despair, Aster smashes his remaining fist into the frozen earth, screaming at Roderick. Why even save him as a baby? Why play the savior if he was just going to butcher him? In the end, Roderick coldly leans down and whispers that Aster has it all twisted. He never actually gave a single damn about him as a person. The only thing Roderick ever hungered for was the godlike power of the 7 wings. A power that had secretly been locked away deep inside Aster's soul. While Aster stares back in pure confusion, Roderick drops a final, sickening truth bomb. His mother was only ever useful, because she acted as the perfect vessel for the weapon he wanted to harvest. Dropping that absolute trauma, Roderick casually strolls away, leaving Aster's mind spiraling in absolute chaos. He weakly reaches a bloody hand toward his father, begging for the whole truth, but his psycho brothers gleefully execute him by driving their blades straight through his spine. As his vision fades to black, Aster's final thoughts are pure tragedy, wondering if his entire existence was just a sick joke meant to end in the dirt. But suddenly, an intense heat wraps around his soul, and when his eyes snap open again, he finds himself staring right back at that same freezing thick snow. Panic crashes over him as his eyes dart around. He is trapped inside the tiny, helpless body of an infant, making him seriously question if this is even his own flesh and blood. Right beside him lies a lifeless woman, her cold arms still wrapped tightly around his fragile frame. Pushing his search magic to the absolute limit, Aster scans the freezing surroundings only to sense heavy footsteps. Fully armed mercenaries are hunting down both him and the deceased woman. His blood runs cold the second he catches their conversation. These goons are taking orders straight from Roderick. Their entire mission: snatch him up and drag him right back to the very monster. A sudden flashback hits him like a freight train. It perfectly matches the exact story of how he was originally discovered on a freezing night just like this one. Buried deep inside a brutal blizzard, the terrifying reality finally clicks in Aster's mind. He actually regressed back in time. But there is zero time to hyperfixate on time travel theories right now. He needs to survive first and ask questions later. Hanging around this icy graveyard guarantees a one-way ticket straight back into Roderick's twisted clutches. Channeling raw mana straight into his tiny palms, infant Aster completely ignores his physical limits and drags himself through the biting snow. Every single muscle screams in pure exhaustion, but he pushes through the lethal winter storm, desperate to put as much distance between him and those guards as humanly possible. Holding back is not even an option. His entire previous life was basically one endless, miserable crawl through the mud anyway, and he is fully prepared to do it all over again if it means surviving. He claws his way forward until his tiny body entirely shuts down, plunging him into darkness. Sometime later, a towering figure unearths his freezing body. It is Viscount Heifried, the powerful head of House Heifried, accompanied by his young daughter. Gently scooping Aster up, the nobleman stares in absolute bewilderment, wondering what on earth a newborn is doing in the middle of a frozen wasteland. His eyes trace the impossibly long, winding trail carved through the deep snow, realizing the sheer distance this little guy just covered. The Viscount is practically speechless, mind completely blown, as he questions the true identity of this insanely Aster eventually snaps out of his coma, only to be ambushed by a group of wide-eyed little girls dying to treat him like their new favorite toy. Pure panic washes over him. He literally has zero clue what the heck is going on or where he ended up. Trusting his gut, he aggressively bails off the bed and starts scrambling across the floor like his life depends on it. The girls immediately sprint right after him, begging him to stop, but his hardcore survival instincts completely take the wheel, pushing him to scurry away even faster. Desperate times call for desperate measures, so he blasts a wave of magic that literally launches his tiny body straight up into the air. But the high does not last long. Gravity kicks in. Right before he goes splat, a massive hand snatches him out of midair. The Viscount chuckles playfully, teasing the kid for pulling off such a crazy stunt. Cold sweat drips down Aster's chubby cheeks as he processes how close he just came to literally meeting the Grim Reaper. But the moment he actually gets a good look at his savior's face, a massive wave of shock hits him. He is staring dead into the eyes of Heifried, the legendary Viscount reigning right over the Roderick territory. Aster internally loses his mind. Out of everywhere in this massive world, he somehow crash-landed straight into another Elmheim stronghold. To put it into perspective, Heifried commands the Viscount House, which is basically a powerful splinter faction, directly tied to the main Elmheim bloodline. Back in his prime, this guy was essentially one of the legendary twin pillars, sworn to defend the entire royal family. But the math is not mathing in Aster's head. Heifried was supposed to have perished in some completely pointless, messy civil war, a conflict that utterly nuked the entire Viscount bloodline from existence. Seeing this man breathing completely solidifies his craziest theory: he has officially traveled back in time. Yet the irony absolutely crushes him. He risked everything to escape Roderick's shadow, only to land straight into the lap of his very own brother. Heifried's gorgeous wife gently scoops the infant up, buzzing with absolute amazement. She cannot wrap her head around the fact that a literal baby. Reading his tiny, panicked face, she easily pieces together that the poor kid was just terrified and trying to make a quick getaway. Pressing a warm, comforting kiss against his forehead, she her soft fingers gently brush against his chubby cheeks, instantly melting away the intense anxiety gripping Aster's chest. Heifried chimes in, warning his wife that this tiny infant houses an absolutely terrifying amount of power, pointing straight to the glowing crest on his back, as cold, hard proof. Curious she carried. Their jaws practically hit the floor when the reflection reveals the legendary mark of 7 magnificent wings. Aster's own eyes go wide in pure shock. He genuinely had zero clue he carried the ultra-rare 7-winged crest all along. Suddenly, Roderick's chilling final words echo through his mind right before his brutal murder. The dark truth finally smashes into him. That psycho only saved his life back then, just a pure, unadulterated rage completely consumes Aster as the dots connect. He spent his entire previous life being mocked and treated like absolutely useless. Breaking the intense silence, Heifried's wife turns to the Viscount, softly asking what exactly they are going to do with it. The second those words hit Aster's ears, sheer panic strikes. There is absolutely no way he is letting that kind of insane power right into the greedy hands of the Elmheim bloodline. He desperately needs that exact strength to finally make Roderick pay. But then a massive plot twist drops. His reasoning: the boy is just way too little to survive out in the wild all by himself. The patriarch firmly steps up, promising to shield and guide the kid until he is fully ready to face the world alone. Bam! The heavy wooden doors suddenly fly open and the daughters tumble onto the floor in a tangled mess. Total eavesdropping busted. Blushing hard, they confess they were just super anxious and had to know what was going down with the boy. Instantly, their faces light up with massive hyped-up grins, realizing they finally scored a baby brother. The matriarch leans in, officially blessing him with the name Aster. Fast forward 10 entire years. We catch Heifried Aster and his fierce sister Alfin rolling up to the legendary sword dance assembly. This massive flex of an event goes down every single year, hosted by a heavyweight Duke clan totally loyal to the Elmheim faction. Think of it as the ultimate high society mixer for elite martial artists. It is where these arrogant blue bloods network, kiss up to each other, and shamelessly parade their top-tier sword prodigies to prove who actually runs the yard. The literal second Heifried squad steps into the venue, the disrespect begins. Hushed toxic gossip instantly rips through the entire crowd. Spectators ruthlessly clown the Viscount crew, smirking that they only showed up to be the laughingstock once again. And oh yeah, they all know the tea on Aster. The random charity case snatched off the streets, just because the family totally failed to birth a real male heir. The surrounding snobs are actually fuming, absolutely disgusted by how much mud this lowly Viscount household drags on to the glorious Elmheim name. Every single toxic whisper reaches Alfin's ears. She leans in tight, begging her brother to keep his head high and brush off the pure hate. Squeezing her fists, she warns him that showing even an ounce of fear here means getting eaten alive. Yet gazing down, Aster spots her own knuckles shaking with bottled-up rage. Their father cuts in, his voice dead serious. He points out that this bitter, icy reception is the exact reality of their family's current status. Staring down the hostile room, Heifried admits this is exactly what the boy needed to see. He glances sideways, asking if the harsh truth shatters his expectations. But Aster does not even flinch. He casually shrugs it off, making it crystal clear that swimming in a sea of haters does not faze him one bit. A booming, proud laugh escapes Heifried's chest. Hearing that icy confidence from his kid totally puts his mind at ease. Here's the crazy part. Way back in his first life, Aster's debut at this exact spot was a colossal, humiliating disaster that stained the Elmheim legacy. Simply standing in this very hall triggers a massive flood of dark, gut-wrenching trauma. But that was the old him. The boy breathing right now is an absolute beast, supercharged by the epic return of the Seven Wings. Piercing the crowd with a deadly glare, Aster locks eyes with the very same brothers who murdered him, smirking down from a high window. The stage is perfectly set for his explosive comeback. Let's set the vibe. This is a brutal era where heavily armored knights run the world and pure god-tier sword skills dictate your entire worth. And the ultimate undeniable flex of power in this violent society, the legendary Wing Crest period. Leaning over the grand balcony to scout the brutal matches, Alfin lets out a heavy clicking her tongue. She totally gets why Furin and Flair straight up dodged this toxic event. Meanwhile, Aster is trapped in his own head, completely haunted by the brutal humiliation he suffered here in his previous run. Catching his intense, spaced-out stare, Alfin snaps her fingers. She gently calls his name, pulling him back to earth, and asking if the pressure is getting to him. She hits him with a soft, reassuring look, totally understanding if he is low-key panicking, since this is his very first sword dance rodeo. Aster shoots back a chillingly calm reply. He isn't shaking at all. Instead, this place just oozes pure, sickening nostalgia. Honestly, he absolutely despises every inch of it. Breaking the tension, Heifried steps in and drops the news that he has to bounce. Clapping a heavy hand on the boy's shoulder, the patriarch firmly trusts him to keep a close watch on his sister. Alfin immediately pouts, throwing her hands up to loudly remind their dad. Smirking, Aster fires back a quick roast, calling out her clumsy streak as the exact reason why he is the one calling the shots today. Before dipping, Heifried nudges the boy, pointing out the sea of nobles their own age. He hints that this is the ultimate chance to network and build some solid alliances. But then his voice drops to a deadly hushed tone. He issues one strict non-negotiable rule: absolutely no one can catch wind of the Seven Wings' power. Watching his dad fade into the crowd, Aster just sighs, totally stressed out. Keeping a low profile in this viper's nest is insanely tough. Seriously, how is he supposed to smoothly vibe and make connections when literally every single glare locked onto him screams pure venom? Out of nowhere, Alphen spots him casually strolling off and immediately demands to know exactly where he thinks he is sneaking away to. Flashing a cold, knowing smirk, Aster casually drops that he is going off to play nice and make some friends. Moments later, he steps right into the lion's den, locking onto Dallas. The fiery redhead sizes him up and rudely barks out, asking who the heck he thinks he is. Without missing a beat, Aster coolly introduces himself, staring down. Flashing a smirk, he casually drops the bomb that he's actually his little brother. Aster casually mentions spotting Dallas from across the room, and figured he had dropped by for a little chat. Dallas looks absolutely clueless, right up until his older bro Grion leans in and whispers that Aster is the stray kid taken in by the Viscount estate. The second it clicks, Dallas bursts into obnoxious laughter, openly mocking him, as the puzzle pieces finally fall into place. He sneers about why Aster rocks the F initial in his name, instead of the prestigious A like the rest of the elites. Aster just stands there in dead silence. His mind is racing, flashing back to the brutal way these two wiped him out in his past life. It honestly blows his mind that he used to be terrified of these guys back then. Staring them down right now, he realizes they aren't monsters, just a couple of arrogant punks. Basically toddlers playing dress-up. Right on cue, Alphen steps in telling Aster these losers aren't worth his energy, and she tries to literally drag him out of there. But Dallas isn't done. He shouts out her name. He smirks, asking if she's still playing hide-and-seek behind her daddy's shadow. He boldly dares her to come over and entertain them, treating her like some cheap escort. Alphen snaps around, shooting him a death glare that makes it crystal clear she couldn't care less about his trash talk. She completely checks him, dropping the ultimate reality check that the main and branch families are equals, not masters and servants. Grabbing Aster's arm, she tries pulling him away again, even though he stubbornly points out he isn't quite finished yet. Dallas instantly dials up the disrespect. He turns to his squad and loudly mocks Alphen, bringing up how her dad used to be a royal knight. A knight who completely failed to protect the king and got his hand chopped off by Roderick as punishment. The absolute disrespect doesn't stop there, as he coldly looks her up and down, bragging about how thankful he is that he doesn't have the blood of a pathetic failure running through his... That hits way too close to home. Alphen snaps, spinning back around and absolutely screaming at Dallas. She demands he swallow his words right now, furious, and refusing to let him drag her father's honor through the mud. Instead of backing down, Dallas takes a mouthful of his drink and literally spits wine right in her face. Wiping his mouth, he brutally reminds her that she was born into a family, full of nothing but useless daughters who will never inherit the real title. He scans her outfit and laughs, saying this isn't some fancy ballroom, and she should just stick to wearing cheap rags. That way she won't have to throw a tantrum the next time she gets totally drenched. Before rolling up to this gathering, Aster was actually worried his past trauma would leave him completely numb, even after coming face to face with Dallas and Grion. But seeing this toxic display right now, yeah, that raw fury is definitely back. Aster casually calls out Dallas's name and completely launches a heavy wine bottle straight at him. The exact second Dallas catches it in a panic, Aster draws his blade in a blinding flash, cleanly slicing the glass in midair and showering Dallas's head in sticky red wine. Dallas stands there completely shell-shocked, dripping wet, while Aster just gives him a ruthless smirk. He smoothly tells the guy to chill, letting him know it's just grape juice, the perfect little beverage for a spoiled tantrum-throwing toddler like him. Flashback to 3 years ago. Aster had completely lost his grip on his over. The destructive shockwave was so chaotic it almost claimed the lives of his own sisters. It took Heifred personally stepping into the danger zone to finally suppress Aster's insane energy. That terrifying day marked the very first time Hifrod witnessed the legendary Seven Wings fully unleashed in combat. Ever since then, Heifred has been sweating over whether that god-tier power can actually be contained even by Aster himself. Back in the present day, Heifred is stuck in a boring elder meeting when a panicked servant aggressively busts through the doors. Gasping for air, the guy announces that things have gone totally off the rails. When they demand to know what's happening, he drops the bombshell that the golden boy of the main family and the wild card from the branch family are about to throw down in a full-blown... Heifred's eyes go wide in pure panic. He completely abandons the meeting and sprints down the halls, almost crashing into Alphen along the way. He frantically demands to know what triggered the fight. Meanwhile, the rest of the Nosy family elders are already sprinting toward the arena to get front row seats to the carnage. Alphen and Hifrid quickly catch up, taking their spots on the high balcony to watch the showdown unfold. The Boomer elders, on the other hand, are absolutely living for the drama, whispering eagerly because they know just how violently this clash could shift family politics, all depending on who manages to walk out of that arena as the victor. Down in the dirt, Dallas arrogantly points his blade at Aster, calling him a massive idiot for daring to cross Duke Owl's house. He spits that Aster is nothing but a filthy half-bloods who crawled straight out of the untamed wilderness, smirking like he's already won. Dallas asks if Aster's brain is too broken to comprehend the massive gap in their stats, loudly bragging that he's practically untouchable because he wields a high-tier force. The crowd is absolutely shook by Dallas's raw potential, totally convinced this explosive power proves exactly why he is the dual-wielding heir to the dukedom. Dallas smirks, relentlessly baiting Aster to flash his crest to the whole arena, unless the wingless freak is too mortified to reveal his pathetic reality. Aster fires back ice cold, claiming he would never stoop so low as to prance around flexing a meaningless little tattoo. That absolute disrespect instantly triggers Dallas, but Aster is just getting warmed up. Aster lays down the ultimate terms. When he wins this death match, Dallas must crawl to Alphen and beg for forgiveness, a bet the arrogant noble instantly accepts. But Dallas counters with a twisted grin, swearing he will leash Aster and turn him into his own personal attack dog the second he claims victory. Exploding off the ground, Dallas closes the distance, screaming that he will literally work Aster into an early grave as he unleashes a savage dual-bladed strike. Aster perfectly parries the onslaught, yet the sheer kinetic shockwave violently shoves him backward, leaving his wrists trembling from the impact. Dallas immediately launches another merciless blitz, roaring at Aster that he is staring down the catastrophic might of a four-winged crest. The air rains down a hurricane of slashes, completely trapping Aster in a desperate defensive guard. An elder spectating from the VIP box points out that Dallas's actual blade work is complete trash, but he effortlessly masks his sloppy technique with an ocean of crushing mana, proving exactly why crest bearers always casually dominate the battlefield. To put it simply, if a one-wing crest holds the spark of a tiny candle, then the mana churning inside four wings is a literal nuclear meltdown. Dallas refuses to let up, suffocating Aster with relentless pressure, while tauntingly asking where all that big energy vanished to. He viciously mocks him, asking if the bottom-tier swordsman wasn't just threatening to force an apology out of him. Smacking his blades against Aster's guard, Dallas ruthlessly bullies him, practically begging the outcast to unleash whatever pathetic trick he has left. Seconds later, Dallas executes a ruthless finisher, destined to end the fight, but Aster flawlessly blocks the execution. As an explosive golden aura erupts from his core, for 10 agonizing years, Aster has been grinding in the shadows, waiting for this exact split second to deliver pure, unadulterated karma upon the absolute monsters who ruined his life. Aster rockets forward, dropping a meteor-like strike on his tormentor that entirely shatters Dallas's stance. The arrogant noble violently crashes to his knees, desperately up in the stands. Grahan's jaw completely drops, utterly mind-blown that his invincible brother is getting steamrolled. Dallas spirals into pure panic, completely malfunctioning at the reality that a god-tier four-wing prodigy like himself is getting absolutely dog-walked by a total peasant. The entire Colosseum falls into a dead silence as Dallas scrambles pathetically to survive. Meanwhile, Hyfried starts sweating bullets, instantly sensing this bloodbath is about to cross the line. Aster's eyes lock into a dead, murderous stare as brutal flashbacks hijack his mind, remembering the exact moment these two psychos severed his arm and slaughtered him in his past life. With the Grim Reaper practically breathing down his neck, Dallas openly sobs, hysterically begging Aster to show mercy. At the exact same moment, the Viscount shrieks from the balcony, desperately demanding that the Berserker hold his blade. The cataclysmic clash triggers a blinding shockwave, and as the dust settles, Aster has completely obliterated Dallas's weapon into jagged shrapnel. He deliberately bypassed a lethal decapitation instead, burying the shattered iron straight into the earth. Dangerously realizing he was 1 millimeter away from getting wiped off the server, Dallas completely wets himself in sheer terror. Flipping the script, Aster brutally roasts the pathetic noble, delivering the exact same disrespect. He coldly advises the coward to rock some heavy-duty rags next time he steps into the ring, just in case he springs another leak. Sliding his blade back into its scabbard, the warrior boldly declares that the era of Aster the Wingless is officially dead. And honestly, just feeling that truth washes a massive wave of peace over his soul. But abruptly, a suffocating, blood-chilling aura manifests right behind his spine, and as he pivots, he locks eyes with the final boss himself, his ultimate arch-nemesis Roderick. The entire audience instantly holds their breath, paralyzed by the intense standoff, because literally nobody had a branch family outcast one-shotting the golden boy of the main bloodline on their bingo card. But reality quickly sets in. This arena is about to become a war zone, because there is zero chance the ruthless patriarch lets this slide. After his elite family crest was just publicly dragged through the abs, Roderick stalks into the combat zone, closing in on the rogue swordsman. Yet Aster refuses to bow, keeping his chin high as he beams pure defiance straight into Roderick's soul. The massive Duke towers over the boy, like a shadow of death, but Aster's ferocious aura never flickers, matching the Tyrant's terrifying glare pixel for pixel. Clinging to his daddy like the ultimate spoiled brat, Dallas pathetically grabs onto the patriarch's coat, fully expecting to be saved. He aggressively snitches to his father, whining that this filthy half-breed violently rebelled against the supreme authority of the main house. Dallas desperately begs the Duke to flex his god-tier authority and erase Aster from existence. But in a sudden mind-bending twist, Roderick forces the hilt of his blade right into Dallas's palm. With ruthless force, he pins the boy's hand straight to the dirt, using the steel utterly crushing his right hand. The entire crowd, Greyon included, freezes in pure horror. Roderick sneers at Dallas, spitting that he just dragged their prestigious bloodline through the absolute dirt. Yet this psycho actually has the nerve to smirk. Disgusted, Roderick rips his blade back out. Hyfred's stomach drops. He knows exactly what's coming next. He screams at his brother to back off, but Roderick just hoists his steel-high dead set on slaughtering his own flesh and blood for the humiliation. He coldly declares that a failure like him has no right to wield a weapon. Right before the strike drops, Roderick glares, demanding to know why this kid is crashing his execution. Aster doesn't flinch, firing back that Dallas hasn't begged Alphen for forgiveness yet, meaning he doesn't get the luxury of dying today. He looks Roderick dead in the eye, saying he can shred Dallas to pieces, but only after he owns up to his mess. Roderick snaps, totally triggered that this kid is playing the role of a true heir, especially since he's just some adopted stray. Aster claps right back proudly, declaring himself the Viscount's rightful son. He drops absolute bars, stating that bloodline doesn't mean a thing compared to a knight's honor and the heavy burden of carrying a noble crest. These are the raw truths his father drilled into him. Catching on to this, Roderick decides to totally flip the script. He corners the boy, stating that if he's truly repping the Viscount's branch, then he just threw absolute garbage on the main family's legendary name. A name celebrated as the ultimate blade of the king. Roderick's aura darkens as he warns Aster that this whole bloodbath can't just be swept under the rug as some petty playground beef. He ruthlessly brings up how Hyfred had to chop off his own arm to pay the ultimate price for his own failure. With a wicked glare, Roderick demands to know what piece of himself Aster plans to but Aster stands 10 toes down, completely unfazed. He corrects the patriarch, stating this was never some childish tantrum. It was a fully sanctioned life-or-death duel. Aster explains that the only thing he did was silence the absolute disrespect thrown at his family, using sheer steel. He then savagely throws Roderick's own brutal philosophy right back in his face. Anyone too weak to claim their own vengeance doesn't deserve to hold a weapon. Aster locks eyes with him, making it crystal clear he isn't giving up. Even a single damn strand of his hair. Sitting in the VIP section, an Earl Elder is absolutely flabbergasted by the insane aura rolling off this kid. Hearing these cold-blooded words, he genuinely refuses to believe this absolute menace is only 10 years old. Roderick commands the boy to square up, and Aster instantly drops into a flawless defensive guard. In a flash, Roderick unleashes a monstrous strike, blasting Aster straight through the solid stone wall with an earth-shattering boom. The entire crowd goes dead silent, terrified that the boy was just wiped from existence. Losing his absolute mind, Hyfred lunges at his brother, blade fully drawn, but Roderick parries the furious swing without breaking a sweat. As the heavy dust settles, the shattered pieces of Aster's blade are scattered across the floor. Yet in a jaw-dropping plot twist, the boy is still on his feet. Gripping the jagged remains of his weapon, he refuses to yield, his battle stance completely unbroken. Pure, unfiltered rage burns in the kid's eyes. Seeing this unbreakable will, Roderick simply turns his back and walks off. with a bruised Dallas trailing right behind him like a shadow. But his father is right there to catch him. Barely clinging to consciousness, Aster gasps out that he kept his promise, he kept Alfin safe. Tears stinging his eyes, Hyfryd holds his boy close, whispering that he was nothing short of an absolute legend today. Meanwhile, back with the big dogs, one of the snarky elders mocks Roderick, calling him out for using such a try-hard bully tactic on a literal child. Roderick totally owns it, but coldly states that the family's god-tier status would have plummeted into a total joke if he just let the kid win. So he had to put him in his place just a little bit. Chuckling, the elder rebrand is simply because the kid had the insane stats and sheer guts to stand tall against the legendary patriarch himself. The council all agree this crazy stunt just cemented Aster's social debut as the most goated entrance in their history. One elder even sweats, admitting he thought this family drama was about to trigger an all-out civil war. But Roderick shuts down the hype real quick, warning them that a massive era of pure chaos is brewing. He calls it a cataclysmic storm, one so terrifyingly massive it could literally rip the entire continent into. The second Aster touches down at his home base, he goes full monk mode, locking himself into a brutal non-stop grind. He absolutely mops the floor with every single sparring partner they throw at him, proving his power scaling is entirely off the charts. Watching him level up this fast, the whole squad realizes that the absolute madness at the Sword Dance Assembly didn't break him, it turned him into a monster. The mansion's staff and guards are absolutely hyped that Aster mopped the floor with Dallas. After all, the main family has been making their lives a living hell for way too long. Meanwhile, Aster is dead set that his brutal flex at the assembly will finally shut the mouths of every hater who ever dared to trash-talk the Viscount bloodline. But let's be real, his ultimate prey is still Roderick. He knows damn well he can't crush Roderick with his current stats. But Aster realizes that the wing crest is essentially just a flashy status symbol, showing off someone's hidden mana reserves. The catch, Aster still hasn't figured out how to unleash the true monstrous energy of the Seven Wings. Everyone knows that being born with an OP crest is totally worthless if you can't actually weaponize it. Aster is dying to push the Seven Wings to their absolute limit without the constant fear of his power, going completely berserk. Lost in thought, he accidentally wipes out everyone on the training grounds just as Alfin rolls up. She flags him down, saying their dad is asking for him. Aster instantly drops his gear. Stepping off the field, he spots his sister rocking full combat attire. He totally roasts her, throwing it back in her face that she used to hate those clothes because they looked tragic. Alfin just shrugs, claiming life is all about balance. Watching Aster grind so hard gave her a reality check that she can't keep slacking off. She then challenges him to a sweaty sparring match the second he gets back. Aster flashes a grin, playfully begging his sister not to wreck him too hard. Moments later, Aster strides into his old man's office, asking what's up. Hyfryd points to a chair, and once Aster sits, his dad drops a nostalgic bomb, bringing up that it's been a solid 10 years since they officially welcomed him into the family. His dad admits he has literally been counting the days for this exact moment. He slides a slick ring topped with a blood-red jewel across the desk, calling it the ultimate proof of the family's successor. Then Hyfryd drops an absolute nuke. He wants Aster to step up as the next head of the household. Aster just freezes, completely stunned into silence. Hyfryd pushes on, laying out the grim reality that the Viscount house is walking a dangerous tightrope right now. But at the end of the day, they still carry the heavy name of the Elmheim branch family. With their own turf to defend, Hyfryd insists that leaving the boss's seat empty is basically a death wish. Breaking his silence, Aster questions if his sisters are actually cool with this insane decision. Hyfryd waves it off, mentioning he is about to hit up the Knight Academy to break the news to them himself. Aster immediately fires back, absolutely certain that Malfa and Kudo, who are currently grinding at the Knight Academy, will throw a massive fit, especially Kudo. He reminds his dad that Kudo straight up despises him just for being a guy, let alone winning the genetic lottery with the Seven Wings. Shooting up from his chair, Aster firmly rejects the massive burden of becoming the next leader. He brutally points out that his mana control is complete trash, and he literally almost ended his own sister's life because of it. Aster sighs, stating that absolutely nothing on earth can calm down an enraged sister. As Aster turns for the door, Hyfryd smirks, muttering that he honestly questions if Aster is even a real teenager with how he acts. The old man chuckles, saying he thought the boss ring would be the ultimate prize for winning the Sword Dance Assembly. But clearly Aster wants a different kind of loot. Hyfryd suddenly pulls out a sleek box, popping it open to reveal the legendary magic sword Graham, which honestly looks more like a glorified dagger. He locks eyes with Aster, revealing that this exact blade can actually tame the wild mana of the Seven Wings. Cutting the office chat short, Hyfried drags Aster deep into the surrounding forest. Aster is totally baffled, wondering why they had to hike out to the middle of nowhere just to test drive a weapon. Hyfried just gives him a serious look, stating he isn't taking any chances considering Aster's infamous track record of literally blowing stuff up, meaning firing off that kind of raw energy inside the training hall would be a straight-up disaster. Hyfried explains the lore behind Graham, calling it an exclusive heirloom handed down only to the firstborn son of the Elmheim bloodline. He admits he pulled some major strings to smuggle the sword out of the main estate just for Aster. Yanking off the protective cloth, Hyfried reveals the weapon, leaving Aster completely dumbfounded by its tiny broken-looking hilt. Hyfried smirks at his confusion, explaining that while the blade looks missing, pumping it full of mana will literally forge a glowing lethal edge fueled entirely by... Hyfried doesn't just talk the talk. He flexes his raw magical aura to show exactly what he means. Boom! A colossal shockwave erupts, obliterating every single thing. The smoke clears, revealing a massive crater, and Hyfried drops the harsh truth: if you try channeling spells through this blade, it will literally suck you dry. He makes it crystal clear that using it for normal magic is a total death wish. Pointing out the ancient relic's legendary past, he challenges Aster to take it for a spin. Aster steps up, gripping the hilt to test the waters. But wait! Without him even trying, the weapon forcefully yanks the mana straight out of his veins, blasting a blinding pillar of light straight into the stratosphere. Back at the mansion, jaws are dropping. One clueless guard spots the flash and starts panicking about a falling meteor. His buddy immediately roasts him for being blind. That glowing beam shot up, not down. While they argue, Alphen effortlessly shuts the debate down confidently, declaring that Aster is definitely the one behind that insane light show. Deep in the forest, Aster is totally speechless, convinced the weapon is overpowered, but Hyfried hits him with a reality check. He tells his son that it is not the steel doing the heavy lifting, it is Aster's own terrifying magic. He reveals a mind-blowing secret. Nobody in the entire bloodline of the Elmheim family has ever awakened the legendary seven-wing crest. Hyfried firmly believes that once the boy tames this beastly energy, he'll leave even Roderick in the dust. But heavy is the head that wears the crown. This god-tier strength, it's a massive target on his back. Hyfried warns him that the second the world discovers his seven wings, the vultures will swarm. Corrupt elites will try to use him as a puppet, while assassins will hunt him down to eliminate the threat before he peaks. To survive the incoming chaos, Hyfried commands him to grind and level up his combat skills right now. Aster nods in agreement. Getting stepped on and living a trash life like his past incarnation? Yeah, hard pass. He genuinely thanks his dad for handing over the ultimate weapon. Swearing on his life, Aster promises to completely dominate both the blade and his newly awakened crest. Fast forward 3 days, Kudo and Malfa finally roll back home from the Night Academy. Kudo strikes a confident pose, arms wide open, totally expecting her little sisters to tackle her with hugs. Nope, they completely ghost her, sprinting straight to Malfa's side. Feeling totally betrayed, Kudo demands an explanation only to get roasted because she constantly ruins their hairstyles. Of course, Kudo plays the victim card, acting like she is way too innocent and modest to ever commit such a crime. Just then, Alphen walks in and Kudo instantly tackles her in a giant bear hug. And predictably, she immediately and aggressively messes up Alphen's hair, completely exposing her own lie. Shifting gears, Malfa asks their parents about Aster's whereabouts. The second Hyfried drops the location, Kudo's eyes lock onto the target like a heat-seeking missile. Cut to Aster, who is absolutely sweating bullets trying to tame this wild blade. The recoil is no joke. His mana is draining at an insane speed just from gripping the hilt. Panting heavily, he desperately questions what kind of... Right in the middle of his struggle, Kudo casually swaggers onto the scene, blade drawn. She smirks, tossing out a sarcastic compliment about him officially breaking his own limits this time. Aster jumps, completely stunned by his big sister's sudden spawn, but she immediately tears into him for skipping the welcome committee. Getting all up in his face, she aggressively questions if he thinks he's suddenly too VIP to greet his own siblings. Kudo drops the bomb that the entire Night Academy is going crazy over his insane stunt. She tells him the whole campus was buzzing with wild rumors about what went down at the sword dance assembly. Not missing a beat, Aster fires back that the spotlight is definitely on her too. He drops the facts he knows for a fact that she's been absolutely plus she literally just flexed on everyone by being the only rookie to bag the honorary Knight medal this year. Kudo brushes it off, claiming she has to grind that hard if she ever wants to take over their father's throne. Then the vibe shifts. She leans in, mentioning the crazy rumor that Aster flat out rejected the heir position. Staring right into his soul, she asks if he threw away the crown just to protect her dream. Internally, Aster is screaming. He can't believe his dad actually leaked that massive secret to her. This absolute disaster is just a one-way ticket to a massive, unnecessary head. Playing it cool, he completely dodges her theory, looking her in the eyes and claiming he simply passed on the title because his stats aren't maxed out yet. Kudo marches toward a massive tree, loudly venting her frustration over how incredibly petty Aster and Highfried are being. They are fully aware that claiming the title of family head has been her. In a flash, she slices right through the thick trunk with her blade and launches the massive timber straight at Aster. Aster scrambles out of the way just in time, shrieking at his sister, demanding to know what the hell she thinks she is doing. Smirking, Kudo reminds him that it has been ages since their last duel, meaning it is high time for a brutal pop quiz. She warns him that the next strike is aiming right for his head, prompting Aster to frantically beg her to cool it, since his weapon is literally a half-finished work in progress. Unfazed, Kudo coldly shoots back that whining about an unfinished blade won't save his neck when a real enemy. She sharply reminds Aster that living by the Knight's Code means staying battle-ready 24/7. Without missing a beat, she drops into a lethal aggressive stance. She threatens to absolutely wipe him off the map if he keeps pulling his punches, leaving Aster completely stunned as he desperately struggles to rein in his erratic mana. But his ruthless sister is already right on top of him. Panic setting in, he realizes he has to go all out against her, because if he hesitates for even a second, she might actually end his life right there. Minutes later, the siblings are still clashing blades. Kudo drops a rare compliment, admitting his combat flow has definitely leveled up, since he is actually keeping pace with her, despite the elite training she soaked up at the prestigious Knight Academy. But the praise is short-lived as she ruthlessly roasts him, calling his swordsmanship pathetic and mocking his embarrassingly sloppy mana control. With one devastating strike, she launches him flying through the air, forcing Aster to admit that his sister is just as merciless as she has always been. Flashbacks hit him. She has carried this savage energy since they were little kids. He questions if her bitter hostility stems from the fact that he is the only guy in the Viscount's household who holds the golden ticket to inherit the entire estate. Or maybe it is because he flexes the insanely overpowered seven-wing crest, a genetic cheat code that completely dwarfs everyone else's potential. To Aster, she is a walking hurricane, constantly forcing him into duels over the tiniest things, while complaining about how rigged the world is. Basically, Kudo is his ultimate inescapable nemesis. Lunging forward for another round, Kudo screams that he is entirely unfit to become the next head of the family. Watching from the sidelines, an anxious Malfa desperately flags her father's attention to the chaotic brawl. She asks if he seriously plans to just let them hash it out alone, terrified that at this rate, one of them is going to end up dead. Highfried calmly reassures Malfa that they simply have their own intense rivalry going on, and while they act completely unhinged, he is totally confident it won't escalate to the point of actual murder. Malfa mutters that she really hopes so, before pivoting the conversation, questioning why he suddenly yanked the duo out of the Knight Academy. She has a gut feeling that this emergency recall is about way more than just discussing the succession. Highfried confirms her suspicions, pulling out a sealed envelope that makes Malfa's jaw drop. Turns out it is an official heavy-duty summons from the Elmheim main house. He reveals that the high-ranking elders running the house might actually be itching to lay eyes on their grandson. Malfa lets out a massive sigh of relief at the news, but Highfried quickly shatters her optimism by laying out the worst-case scenario, warning her that they might actually lose Aster for good. Cutting back to the woods, a breathless Aster begs his sister to just be reasonable, reminding her that he has literally already turned down the succession offer. He insists their dad must have passed on the memo, but Kudo drops a massive bombshell, revealing that Highfried is completely refusing to accept his decision to step down. Caught off guard, Aster suddenly finds himself struggling to block Kudo's crushing offensive, comparing the raw impact to fighting a massive troll. Swinging a giant heavy mallet, Aster nearly gets sliced to ribbons, but barely manages to deflect her blade to the side as he screams at her, begging her to just listen for 1 second. However, Kudo ruthlessly drives a heavy blunt strike into his gut, with enough force to shatter his internal organs. Coughing up a mouthful of blood, the brutal reality hits Aster. His sister's strength is absolutely insane. Standing over him, Kudo coldly declares that relying solely on physical swordplay makes him nothing more than a third-rate scrub. She adds that even if he leans completely on his magic, he is still just a second-rate amateur at best. It is only when he flawlessly blends his spellcasting with his blade work that he can finally become top tier. Glaring down in sheer disappointment, Kudo lectures him that the varying tiers of wing crests dictate the raw volume of magical energy a person can basically handle. She breaks it down, explaining that just a single extra wing creates a massive threefold gap in power, completely multiplying a fighter's magical output and raw stamina. Technically, Kudo should be completely outmatched here, considering she only rocks 5 wings. But that doesn't stop her from totally ripping into Aster, screaming that his stats are way too high to be dodging her strikes. Instead of tanking the hits, he keeps falling back on his trusty sword skills, like a total coward. She gets right in his face, demanding to know why he fundamentally rejects his own magic. She ruthlessly asks if he is still traumatized, terrified of going completely feral like that one time years ago. That exact sentence hits Aster like a massive truck. His eyes snap wide open as the brutal truth sinks in. He honestly never realized that deep down, the absolute raw might of the 7 wings practically paralyzed him. It suddenly clicks. He was subconsciously hard-nerfing his own abilities, constantly throttling his output, which perfectly explains why his mana blade kept flickering uncontrollably. He had literally chained up his own magic, paralyzed by the phantom fear of accidentally causing another absolute bloodbath. Sensing his hesitation, Kudo brutally taunts him. She screams that he was basically handed her ultimate dream on a silver platter. She launches herself straight at him, snarling that if he is too pathetic to wield it, he should just fork over the power to her. She dares him to hand over the reins if he is going to keep playing the terrified. But the vibe instantly flips. A massive shockwave erupts as Aster effortlessly blasts her backward with a terrifying surge of raw magic. Kudo actually gasps in pure shock as Aster flashes a cold smile. He genuinely thanks his older sister for finally snapping him out of his pathetic delusion. Without warning, he explodes forward, completely ditching his glowing blade. Kudo squints through the dust, frantically wondering if he seriously just burned through his entire mana pool. But she instantly scraps that absolutely insane theory. There is zero chance a monster like him is running on empty. Aster practically houses a bottomless ocean of mana, locked inside those 7 wings. Even if he hasn't unlocked his peak potential yet, his new strategy is unhinged. He is actively funneling every single drop of that chaotic energy into one devastating point-blank. He violently crashes into her guard. Kudo barely deflects the brutal impact, mockingly clapping back that she is honestly impressed. He cooked up a crazy stunt like that, right in the middle of a death match. But Aster isn't playing games anymore. His voice drops freezing cold as he swears he absolutely refuses to throw away this second chance at life. His power, his blade, and most definitely his insane family dynamics, he is claiming it all. He practically growls that he clawed through hell to get these things in his past, and nobody is stripping them away from him ever again. Kudo's brain totally short-circuits. What on earth is this kid rambling about with all this second life garbage? Before she can even process it, Aster rockets into the air. She flawlessly shifts her stance for a lethal counter, but in the blink of an eye, the kid straight up glitches out of reality. He instantly materializes right in her blind spot, whispering with terrifying absolute certainty that the training wheels are officially off. He rips a monstrous full-throttle slash straight across her torso. A horrific chill paralyzes Kudo's spine as she literally feels cold steel slicing through her guts. Utterly convinced, cut to black. Sometime later, Kudo violently jolts awake in her own bed, her mind spinning wildly as she tries to figure out how she miraculously teleports. Out of nowhere, her maid Malfa casually peers over her, playfully welcoming her savage boss back to the land of the living. The absolute chaos of the showdown instantly floods back into Kudo's brain. Panting heavily, she aggressively demands to know exactly how the fight ended. Malfa casually drops the bomb that little Aster literally piggybacked her unconscious body all the way to the mansion, smoothly lying that she just took a nap mid-brawl. The kid claims she basically passed out from serious jet lag after their long trip, but Kudo knows that is pure cap. Suddenly, the horrifying flash of the final clash replays in her head. That precise, terrifying fraction of a second, where Aster literally slaughtered her. The insane truth finally hits her. That absolute monster had instantly dissolved his blade a microscopic millimeter before it shredded her organ. What she actually felt wasn't steel, it was the pure ghost-like aura of his violent energy tearing through her flesh. She aggressively exhales, her heart still hammering against her ribs. She desperately tries to convince herself that her baby brother would never actually execute his own flesh and blood. But honestly, deep down in that split second, she genuinely believed she was staring straight into the eyes of the Grim Reaper. She absolutely cannot shake the terrifying reality that her innocent little sibling is a total menace, packing a ridiculous amount of savage spite inside such a tiny, furious and hyped on pure adrenaline. Kudo snatches her weapon, screaming at Malfa to drop Aster's location because their deathmatch is no. But Malfa totally deflates her rage bluntly, stating that the boy has already dipped from the estate. Kudo aggressively blinks, totally caught off guard. The maid calmly explains that an incredibly urgent royal summons dropped out of nowhere from the main branch. Aster was immediately whisked away just minutes ago, sitting shotgun with their dad. Kudo completely loses her mind, screaming in pure outrage because absolutely no one bothered to loop her into this insane plot. Smash cut to Aster and Hyfryd chilling in complete silence inside an elite carriage rolling straight toward the main family's territory. Hyfryd finally breaks the tension, warning his boy that they are about to face the literal puppet masters, the ancient elders secretly pulling the strings of the entire Elheim Empire. He explains that these guys are the retired legendary bosses of the main and side branches. We are talking god-tier VIPs holding unimaginable world-bending clout across their entire bloodline. Hyfryd seriously locks eyes with Aster, dropping the heavy truth that these geezers are still actively dictating the game, despite officially hanging up their crowns years ago. That is exactly why everyone terrifiedly calls them the Shadow Rulers. Hyfryd's face darkens as he admits these ghost-like elites haven't given a single damn about Aster since the literal second he was adopted, which leaves their dad incredibly stressed and utterly clueless as to why the big bosses are suddenly dragging the kid. Aster shoots his dad a knowing look, betting this whole mess is direct fallout from the absolute chaos at the Sword Dance Festival. Word on the street is, the Elmheim elders are obsessed with their flawless reputation. Like they literally value family clout way more than cold hard cash or even breathe. Mess with their aesthetic and boom, you get tossed straight into a pit as a late night snack for bloodthirsty monsters. Hyfryd's jaw practically hits the floor. He demands to know who's been leaking these dark family secrets to a kid. Aster stammers, dodging the question entirely. He just drops the bomb that he's already bracing for impact, whether that means a brutal beatdown or getting permanently. Hyfryd locks eyes with him, asking if he's seriously about to ghost his entire life without a proper farewell. Aster doesn't even flinch. He's ready to dip. Honestly, he had his bags packed mentally the second his sisters rolled up to the estate. Plus, he knows his vibe just totally irritates Kudo. With him out of the picture, she can finally chill, but he hits his dad with a silver lining thanks to her constant pushing. He's actually mastering the heavy mechanics of wielding Graham. He's hyped, absolutely positive he can unlock way more of that insane Seven Wings energy now. Then the vibe gets heavy. He begs his dad to back off completely from here on out. No rescue missions. He's built to survive solo now. Out of nowhere, Kudo's face smashes against the carriage window. She snaps at Aster to drop the tough guy act, since he's literally the baby of the family. Aster nearly jumps out of his skin. His sister is clinging to a moving vehicle like a literal spider. She yanks the door wide open. He can't believe this fiery redhead sprinted down the road just to catch up. Gasping for air, Kudo rips into him, calling him completely heartless for trying to ghost his own sister. She spills that the rumor mill is going crazy. She knows the supreme elders of the main house called him in, which is a massive flex considering even she and Malfa have never scored an invite to the big leagues. Hyfryd cuts in, shutting down any idea of a tag-along, but Kudo waves it off. She already knows the drill. That's exactly why their dad pulled them out of the academy. Someone's got to hold down the fort while they walk into the lion's den. Kudo's expression darkens. She knows an elder summons isn't a casual chat. It's high-stakes territory, where one wrong move means game over. Malfa even did the math, and the odds of Aster actually walking back out those doors, not looking great. Aster chuckles nervously, trying to deflate the tension. He tells her she's being super dramatic, and that it's just a boring business meeting. But inside his head, panic mode. He knows making it out alive is a massive coin toss. Suddenly, Kudo goes full unhinged. She glares daggers at him, listing off everything she despises: his boyish privilege, his epic Seven Wings cheat code, the VIP treatment he gets 24/7. It drives her insane that he overshadows her power levels despite her age, and how he plays the stoic adult when he's just her annoying little bro. She vents out all her toxic energy, but then her voice cracks. Despite the bitter rivalry, she can't just erase their blood tie. She points a shaky finger at him. He can fake that hard-shell persona all day long, but at the end of the day, he's still her kid brother, period. Her eyes glisten with unshed tears as she commands him to drag himself back to the estate. Their rivalry isn't finished yet, and before bouncing, she throws one last threat. Round 2 is going to be absolutely brutal. No holding back. She launches herself out of the moving cab. Aster stares at the dust trailing behind her, totally thrown off by her emotional whiplash. But a warm smile breaks across his face. He's incredibly grateful. Right then, he mentally locks in, he will survive this. Back on the dirt road, Kudo stands completely still. She throws up a hand, waving frantically at the disappearing carriage, fully exposing the soft heart she hides beneath all that rage. Fast forward. The carriage rolls up to the imposing main estate. They aren't greeted with a red carpet, but a wall of heavily armed muscle. The guards bark at Heifred, making it clear the top brass is already inside, tapping their watches. Heifred brushes off their intimidation tactics. He coldly tells them to fall back. He grew up in these halls, he doesn't need a map. But the guards step closer. This isn't a suggestion. Their strict orders are to physically herd both him and Aster straight to the holding area. Heifred's stomach drops. The vibe check confirms his worst fears. This isn't a cozy family reunion. It's an interrogation. Still walking these cold corridors floods his brain with bittersweet flashbacks of the last time he stood on this turf. Pushing through the grand lobby, Heifred leans in close. He whispers a dire warning to Aster, "Keep your chill." Throwing a tantrum today is basically a death wish. Aster smirks, his eyes flashing dangerously. He promises to play the good boy, unless those geezers give him a real reason to snap. Heifred agrees, pulling Aster aside to drop a major truth bomb. This is exactly why he's been warning him. The absolute unit they are about to face is a walking red flag. But while his dad spills the tea, Aster is totally zoned out, mesmerized by the fierce sparring going down in the courtyard. Heifred literally has to snap him back to earth, right outside the grand double doors. Security is no joke. Guards completely strip them of their blades the second they step inside. A terrifyingly calm elder greets them, roasting Heifred for straight-up ghosting the estate for an entire decade. Heifred respectfully lowers his head, greeting the man as his great-grandfather, the legendary 6th Patriarch. It suddenly clicks in Aster's head. This is the mastermind pulling all the strings from the shadows. Enter Zenith Elmheim. Aster scans the room quickly, realizing these absolute titans hold Elmheim's fate in the palm of their hands. Spotting a few familiar faces from the epic sword dance tournament, Aster is totally thrown off by Roderick's sudden absence. Catching his puzzled vibe, Zenith flat out states that Roderick is MIA. The Patriarch flexes that Roderick commands the Royal Guard, making him way too slammed for these tedious boardroom chats. So, Zenith and his squad of ancient elites handle the messy politics behind the scenes. Aster flashes back to his previous life, realizing he never even crossed paths with Zenith, keeping the old man totally off his radar. But the sheer power radiating from this guy is insane. Summoning this many high rollers is no joke. Cutting the tension, Heifred demands to know why they were dragged here. Zenith just smirks, hinting that Heifred already knows exactly what's up. The old man casually brings up the massive chaos Aster sparked at the festival. Boom! Aster's gut feeling is dead on his wild stunt totally triggered this interrogation. Heifred fires back, arguing that Roderick was supposed to handle that mess in-house. The council scoffs, clapping back that Roderick's move was just PR damage control for the crowds. It changes absolutely nothing. The prestigious Elmheim reputation took a massive hit. One boomer brutally points out that dragging an adopted nobody to their elite gathering was a huge flop from day one. They make it crystal clear if Aster had just stayed a quiet NPC, they would have let it slide. But the second he flexed on the main bloodline, all bets were off. The game completely changed. Zenith coldly states that kicking Aster to the curb is the only logical move, but promises Heifred is definitely going down with him. Aster snaps. He vaults out of his seat, shouting down the council, fiercely owning up to the entire disaster. He demands they keep his dad completely out of the crossfire. He's fully crashing out, only to glitch when he notices his father just standing there, eerily silent. Aster freezes mid-rant, utterly baffled by Heifred's weirdly calm vibe. The elders violently shut Aster down, slamming him for being a total wild card, ripping into him for having the sheer audacity to interrupt. Zenith slowly rises his aura, suffocating the room, schooling Aster that every single guy here is carrying the entire empire on their backs. He drops a truth bomb. The knights aren't some united front. There is a massive legion of vultures lurking in the dark, praying for one tiny slip-up so they can hijack the throne. Zenith adds that his own inner circle is just as cutthroat. Stalking toward the boy, he coldly demands hard proof that Aster isn't a ticking time bomb for the dynasty. Without missing a beat, Zenith unsheathes a glittering blade and shoves it into Heifred's hand. He harshly brings up Heifred's past failure, the time he totally dropped the ball on guarding the king, dragging their legacy straight through the dirt. Turns out this exact room is where Heifred let Roderick slice his arm clean off as payback. Now Zenith demands the ultimate loyalty test Heifred has to literally take his own kid's head. The patriarch swears that if the boy falls, their slate is wiped completely clean. But before the words even settle, Heifred glares dead at the old man, absolutely refusing to lay a single finger on his son. That he would literally rather end his own life than strike down his own flesh and blood. Aster is completely stunned, but Zenith is ruthless, straight up telling Heifred that, since he wouldn't do the deed, he's catching the execution instead. Honestly, Zenith goes nuclear, officially declaring that Heifred's entire bloodline is totally finished. Every single person right down to the youngest kids is going to be wiped off the map. Suddenly, Aster's voice cuts through the room, chillingly asking Zenith what exactly has him shaking in his boots. The old man spins around completely baffled, while Aster just keeps cooking. He calls them out for being a bunch of fully grown men cowering together in pure panic. Like it is actually just straight up pathetic. Aster stares Zenith down, daring them to banish him. If they are so terrified, he will spin the block and hunt them down later. And then boom. Aster rips off his shirt, exposing the legendary 7 wings burned into his skin, making absolutely sure the whole squad knows exactly the kind of monster they will be messing with. If they even breathe, the whole room instantly drops into dead silence, jaws on the floor. In his head, Aster is desperately apologizing to his dad. Because even though he promised to lay low, he just couldn't sit back and watch, not while the insanely bright glowing... Aster drops a massive reality check warning the entire council that they seriously need to rethink their life choices before turning him into an enemy. The elders and guards are in total denial. They refuse to process what their own eyes are seeing, desperately coping by claiming the mark has to be a total fake. Why? Because something like this hasn't manifested on a human body in literally hundreds of years. Dropping his voice to a dead-cold whisper, Zenith demands to know if Aster truly grasps the insane gravity of the symbol he is. Unbothered, Aster assures him he gets the hype perfectly. He already knows the drill. The more wings you pack, the harder people freak out. Over in the cut, the Earl just bursts out laughing from his seat. He quickly catches himself tossing out a half-hearted apology, before waving his hand and telling them to please continue this absolutely peak. Zenith goes into lore mode, explaining that a crest isn't just a tattoo, it's a literal magic-generating organ hand-delivered to humanity by ancient spirits back in the day. Humans have definitely maximized this cheat code, passing the raw power down through generations to build their empires. But hitting the 7-wing cap, 0 humans have ever done it. That tier is strictly locked to the Spirit Clan, the literal creators of the crests. Aster raises an eyebrow straight up, asking if Zenith is implying he belongs to the Spirit Clan. Zenith admits there is an actual chance, assuming the insane flex on his back is legit, but Aster shuts the old man down fast, loudly, declaring that he is Heifred's blood, and right now, he literally could not care less about the crazy lore behind his birth. Aster leans in, making it incredibly simple. He just wants to know if Zenith is actually ready for all the smoke of having him as an enemy. He drops a major flex, casually mentioning that a ton of top-tier noble houses would instantly snatch him up if Elmheim actually... And Aster makes sure Zenith realizes exactly how badly that would backfire. The elders are already sweating over a potential rebellion, meaning they desperately need a powerhouse like him on their roster, especially since he is the living, breathing symbol of the 7 wings, a prodigy who wildly outclasses even the legendary Roderick. The absolute audacity leaves the entire room violently speechless. But deep down, Aster is playing 4D chess. He remembers the old guy dropping hints about an uprising, and frankly it is no cap. A massive rebellion is actually on the horizon. We are talking about a brutal all-out civil war that will completely swallow the nation. But because he has that past life spoiler knowledge, Aster is forcing their hands right here, right now. He needs to perfectly map out his allies and his ops to guarantee the Viscount family makes it out alive. Zenith finally breaks the silence with a harsh scoff, mocking Aster for actually thinking he is the main character. He coldly points out there is 0 hard proof that those 7 wings are legit. Without missing a beat, Aster literally invites the old man to try and kill him if he really thinks it is a bluff. But he drops one final chilling warning. Pulling that trigger means an all-out bloodbath between him and the entire Council of Elders. Honestly, Aster knows Elmheim wouldn't lose a wink of sleep over unaliving him if they truly wanted to. He is just pushing them to the absolute edge to see if they will swallow his bait. Right on cue, Earl Mays heavily claps his hands together and stands up smoothly, suggesting to Zenos that throwing Aster into a trial would be the ultimate vibe check. The elders absolutely lose it, screaming at Mays for even suggesting it, but Mays just smirks, flipping it back on them, asking if they are actually man enough to witness the raw power of the Seven Wings in action. Extremely confused, they demand to know what he is plotting. He casually reminds the room that they are literally standing inside the greatest martial clan ever. There has to be a couple of insane, death-defying trials lying around. Watching this masterclass in manipulation, Aster instantly locks in on the fact that Mays is completely on his side. Wildly enough, Zenos actually buys into Mays' pitch. He glares at Aster and commands the boy to follow him. Because brutally disciplining a grandson who clearly forgot how to keep his mouth shut is his absolute duty as a grandfather. Fast forward a few tense moments, and the squad arrives. Zenos leads Aster toward a pitch-black subterranean. This hidden descent drops straight into the old waterways, a forgotten labyrinth originally carved out as an emergency fallout shelter. But right now, Zenos is using it as a literal dungeon for a caged magical beast. With a cold smirk, Zenos drops the ultimate ultimatum. The trial is dead simple: slaughter the monster or die trying. Hyfryd rubs his temples, groaning in pure exasperation. He just warned Aster to keep his insane Seven Wings power strictly off the radar, but Aster shoots his dad a defiant look. Playing it safe just isn't on the menu anymore. You can't exactly keep god-tier ultra-flashy abilities stuffed in the closet forever. Dropping straight into the gaping abyss is Aster hears his father's desperate warning echo from above. Stay frosty. Mid-descent, Aster locks eyes with Myos. The guy is practically vibrating with twisted curiosity as Aster vanishes into the gloom. The second his boots hit the stone floor, a bone, and then he spots it. Dallas's severed head just casually rolling on the dirt like a discarded piece of trash. Aster freezes, absolute shock paralyzing his veins. Zenos' voice echoes from above, casually confessing that he threw Dallas the exact same chance to redeem his, but the guy just bawled his eyes out like a total coward until his dying breath. Honestly, it was pathetic to watch. "Don't disappoint me," Zenos sneers. Right on cue, a massive electric blue magical beast materializes out of the darkness. It unleashes a deafening, earth-shattering roar. Yeah! Aster instantly realizes this trial is no joke. Even though Dallas was a massive pain, Aster actually feels a twinge of pity for the doomed guy. Boom! The monster lunges forward with blistering speed, but Aster casually slices it into literal confetti with a single lightning-fast sword strike. Up in the gallery, the spectators' jaws practically hit the floor. Aster smoothly sheathes his blade with a smirk. Sure, the beast is creepy, but honestly, his sister is way scarier. But wait, something is horribly wrong. Aster whips around only to watch the beast's mangled flesh rapidly knitting itself right back together. Oh hell no, the thing is a freaking undead. Hyfryd absolutely loses his mind. He screams at Zenos, demanding to know why a nightmare fuel monster is casually chilling under their house. Unfazed, Zenos drops a dark truth. Undead creatures are basically magnets for the lingering stench of death. This thing clearly smelled an all-you-can-eat buffet of corpses, and thought that is exactly why it slithered straight down into their catacombs. Knowing you could hack the beast 1,000 times and it still wouldn't drop, Zenos ruthlessly trapped it alive. To him, it's the ultimate sparring dummy to gauge raw power. Plus, Zenos casually brags that this monster is the ultimate garbage disposal for their annoying corpse problem. One of the elders starts sweating bullets. He gasps that taking down an undead is a total nightmare, even for a seasoned elite knight. Yet Zenos is dead seriously ordering a kid to execute it. The elders furiously demand to know if he is deliberately trying to get the Seven Wings prodigy slaughtered. Zenos' reply is ice cold. If Aster actually bites the dust down there, then he was just a pathetic fraud all along. He ruthlessly adds that Aster dying would honestly just make their lives easier. They have other brutal methods to get what they want. Meanwhile, Mayos is clutching his chair, completely anxious. He is silently praying that Aster flexes every ounce of his skill to survive. Cut back to the bloodbath. Aster is going sicko mode, carving the beast up like a turkey, but absolutely nothing is sticking. 0 damage. The monster's healing factor is completely busted. We are talking next-level broken regeneration compared to your average zombie. Plus, here's the catch with the undead. They are already dead. To permanently erase one, you either need to torch it with raw sunlight, or you have to obliterate it using a heavily buffed, holy infused weapon. If you lack both, the only valid strat is to run for your life, because brawling an undead is a literal waste of breath. But for Aster, bailing out is straight up impossible. He is trapped in the kill box. He quickly realizes that playing by the normal rules is an insult to the god-tier Seven Wings aura surging through his veins. Packing this kind of nuclear arsenal, he doesn't time to put on a show and flex his true terrifying potential. Boom! Aster triggers a catastrophic shockwave of an attack that literally sends the elders flying out of their seats in sheer panic. They are finally witnessing the apocalyptic wrath of the Seven Wings up close. The devastating strike kicks up a massive blinding dust cloud, swallowing the entire arena. Up top, the spectators are holding their breath, completely blind to the carnage. But as the thick smoke slowly clears, oh hell, the beast is still standing, and before Aster can even blink, the massive monster straight up body slams Aster hard into the dirt. Heifried screams his boy's name in pure panic, but Maze quickly blocks him from jumping into the pit to play hero. Heifried snaps, demanding to know if he is just supposed to watch his kid get slaughtered, but Maze tells him to chill for a second and actually look closely at the arena. Maze spots a wild smirk creeping across Aster's face. Even getting pinned down by a nightmare, the kid is totally hiding a crazy trump card. Aster casually lifts his blade, channeling raw mana right into it. Then, boom, he triggers a massive point-blank energy blast directly into the creature's gut, mirroring the exact move his dad pulled off back in the forest. The beast violently hacks up black blood, its internal organs totally shredded by the shockwave. But since this thing just will not stay down, Aster decides to brutally chip away at its health bar until it breathes its absolute last. Heifried's jaw hits the floor. He literally only demonstrated that technique a single time, yet his son is already maxing out the skill tree and taking it to a godlike level. The sheer amount of aura Aster is pumping out causes the entire underground chamber to quake violently, threatening to bring the roof down on all of them. Half the elders completely lose their cool and try to bail, screaming for Zenos to run, but the old man is glued to the spot, utterly hyped by the spectacle. Zenos is completely mind-blown by the insane pressure radiating off Aster. Finally, the legendary hype behind the power of the Seven Wings actually makes sense to him. A few seconds pass. The terrified boomers cautiously scramble back up once the massive earthquake stops. They sprint to the edge to inspect the damage, but Zenos has not flinched once. He watched the whole crazy combo unfold. He realizes Aster trapped the undead freak in a literal tornado of magical destruction and deleted it from existence. Zenos has to admit it was an absolute flex of brute force, packing insane quality and totally ridiculous quantity. Sure, it is a jaw-dropping magical nuke, but it does not exactly count as a refined martial. This leaves the old man seriously questioning if this raw chaos is truly the core mechanic of the Seven Wings. Zenos turns and interrogates Heifried, asking if he coached the kid to pull off that specific stunt. Heifried quickly shoots that down. The dad confesses he is just as stunned watching his boy level up like crazy every single. Maze smoothly steps in, asking the head honcho if he got the show he wanted, and if Aster officially cleared the trial. Wearing an incredibly intense glare, Zenos scans the VIP booth and challenges anyone to speak up if they have a problem. Complete dead silence. Maze instantly shouts down to Aster that he totally passed and tells him to hurry his butt back up to ground level. Aster looks up and sarcastically points out a minor detail. The giant chain that dropped him into this murder pit is completely wrecked. So he yells for somebody to toss down a lifeline so he can actually climb out. Flash forward, Aster strolls right into Zenos' private office for a heavy one-on-one. The boss straight up offers him a VIP ticket to become the next head of the main family, but Aster shuts it down. Zenos raises an eyebrow, warning the kid that this is a one-time drop. If he skips this golden ticket, he is never getting it back. Aster coolly clarifies that he could not care less about their toxic succession drama. Plus, showing up at the main house would just trigger massive beef with his jealous cousins. He makes it crystal clear his true spawn point isn't this fancy main estate, it is back home at Heifried's territory. Zenos just chuckles darkly, telling the boy he can play the humble card all day, but the absolute hunger in his eyes gives him away. The elder casually drops a bomb. He knows Aster secretly plans to aim his revenge squarely at Elmheim in the future. Aster physically tenses up, completely caught off guard. Zenos pushes further, straight up asking if Roderick is his main target. Aster's face instantly locks down into full defense mode. The old geezer waves a hand, telling the kid to chill out. He promises he is not looking to dig into his private questline today. Aster narrows his eyes and demands to know why. After all, aren't the rebels supposed to be the main family's sworn enemies? Zenos drops some harsh truth. This family is far from united, and frankly, Roderick is becoming a massive headache. The boss man is totally fine letting Aster do his thing, as long as the kid's presence acts like a but the room turns freezing cold as Zenith delivers a deadly warning. If Aster ever dares to flex on him again, it will be game over right then and there. Walking out the heavy doors, Aster wipes a bead of sweat. He has to admit that old man is an absolute final boss. Heifried immediately catches him in the corridor, sweating bullets, as he asks what kind of crazy talk went down in there. Aster drops the tea the top dog literally tried to recruit him into the main bloodline, but he completely ghosted the offer. Heifried looks like his brain just short-circuited. Even Maze standing right next. Maze points out the obvious. Aster would have scored massive premium perks if he just let the main family sponsor him. Aster pivots, deadpanning the Earl and asking why he secretly bailed him out earlier. Maze plays totally dumb, acting like he has no idea what the kid is talking about. Maze chuckles, claiming he just wanted to troll him a bit. Then his voice gets serious, reminding Aster that from this moment on, he is officially the undisputed master of the Seven Wings. As the trio struts down the long corridor, Aster catches the surrounding elders practically drooling as they stare at him, and every single one of them has the exact same greedy agenda. Scheming to keep Aster on a tight leash ever since he was literally a kid. Mace drops a harsh truth bomb. Dodging them is impossible. With the legendary Seven Wings strapped to his name, the target on his back is only getting bigger. Aster squints straight up, asking if Mace is part of that shady crowd. Mace just shrugs, dropping the reveal that he actually runs the Knight Academy as a director, meaning hunting down top-tier prodigies is basically his 9 to 5. Nodding toward a blonde old guy lurking in the distance, Mace hints that he is playing the exact same game. Striding away, Mace tosses a final hook, promising he will be waiting for Aster to officially enroll. Aster just stares, totally lost. Is this guy a low-key ally or a hidden boss? He is way too hard to read. Heifried claps a heavy hand on Aster's shoulder, signaling it is time to bounce. He is absolutely dying to hear the play-by-play of Aster's insane flex out there. Aster nods, chuckling that his mom is going to absolutely lose her mind when she spots his bruised-up state. Cut to Roderick, who just received some brutally dark news. His son Dallas got wiped out in Zenith's lethal trial. Knowing Aster was lined up for the exact same gauntlet, Roderick demands the full rundown. The messenger nervously spills the details, exposing the awakening of the Seven Wings. Surprisingly, Roderick doesn't even flinch. For years, they had kept this fragile, razor-thin balance of power within the estate. But now he knows the whole system is about to crash and burn. The lackey urges him to strike first, but Roderick shuts it down. Why panic? Aster isn't an actual threat yet. Plus, rushing is for amateurs. He is perfectly fine waiting, totally convinced those Seven Wings will end up in his hands anyway. Until that day drops, he is letting Aster run wild. Honestly, he is craving the entertainment of watching the exact same kid, who slipped through his fingers 10 years ago, squirm in pure agony. Flash forward 4 years. Aster rolls up to the Knight Academy, right as the staff barks at the massive crowd of rookies to form up. Pencils freeze, heads turn. As Aster strolls through the entire room, locks eyes on him. His clout has skyrocketed lately, and everybody knows exactly who he is. Stepping up to the registration desk, the official hits him with a roadblock hand over his wing crest. They weed out the magicless fakes right at the door. But the second the official glances down at the paperwork, he practically chokes on the name Elmheim. Aster flashes a dangerously calm smile, teasingly asking if he really needs to flash his crest, claiming it is stamped in a super awkward spot to show off. Smirking like a total boss, he wonders out loud if his face card alone is enough to clear the gates. Fast forward, Aster is just chilling, when this blonde try-hard named Smythe decides to start barking in his direction. Smythe sneers, saying he has zero memory of seeing his face, before practically mocking Aster for wandering into the wrong neighborhood. He arrogantly declares this exam is strictly for top-tier legends. Unbothered, Aster literally just breezes right past him, tossing back a chilled reply that it sounds like the Smythe absolutely loses it, screaming that every single warrior in that hall has survived hellish grinding, returning year after year just to survive the cuts. He rips into Aster, roasting him for swinging a pathetic, fun-sized blade while dreaming of standing with the heavy hitters. Smythe aggressively claims this arena will chew up guys like him, ordering him to pack it up and scrub out, if he is just here to play tourist. The veteran applicants just roll their eyes, fully used to Smythe bullying the fresh meat every single season. But internally, they are screaming. They cannot fathom that this clown is actively picking a fight with the literal wielder of the Seven Wings. Smythe is completely clueless about the monster he is poking, Cue the dramatic entrance. Grian and his toxic squad step into the spotlight. Smirking at his cousin, Grian drops a cold, "It's been a minute." Aster casually drops his condolences for dead Dallas, but Grian just waves it off. He tells Aster not to waste a single tear, brutally calling his own brother a massive failure who deserved to get put in the dirt. Honestly, Grian is thriving. He is hyped. Dallas is finally out of the picture, sick of his arrogant ego, just because he was exactly 1 year older. Leaning in, Grian warns Aster to check his ego. Sure, he can flex those 7 wings all he wants, but the main family is built different. And here at the academy, Aster is completely unprotected. Leaving that threat hanging, Grin's crew swaggers off, leaving the whole crowd buzzing from the insane family drama. 2 members of the Elmheim bloodline just pulled up to the exam, marking this as a massively hyped year. Smite instantly realizes he messed with the wrong guy, so he aggressively backpedals, sprinting up to Aster and acting super buddy-buddy. Aster telling him to drop the formalities and just use his first name. Soon after, the squad rolls up to the main testing arena, where the head examiner steps up to hype the crowd. The guy makes it crystal clear Royal Knights are built entirely different from those scrub local knights roaming the boondocks. He hypes them up as the ultimate shields for the king, blades forged in honor who put their lives on the line, meaning dead weight will get completely rejected. He straight up tells them to treat this arena like a bloody war zone and flex their true potential until they physically cannot anymore. Honestly, Aster is tuning out the guy's dramatic speech, absolutely unfazed because he is just hyped to finally step foot inside the academy again. Back in his wingless days, just breathing this air was a total pipe dream. Basically, this place was a VIP club for monsters he could never touch, ruled by the absolute apex predator Roderick. Aster mentally tells Roderick to keep the throne warm because he is coming for that top spot crazy fast. But before he can boss up, he has to completely shred this entrance exam. The examiner officially drops the starting flag and bam, out of nowhere, a random applicant faceplants into the dirt with an arrow buried deep in his skull. The vibe instantly shifts from a test to a literal death trap as the examiner announces the twisted game, the trial of the turret. It is simple. If you are still breathing, at the end you win. Without warning, the sky goes dark as a massive rain of iron completely floods the arena. Rookies absolutely lose their minds sprinting blindly, only to get instantly pinned to the floor. Meanwhile, the veterans lock into a defensive huddle, dropping into a tight circle. These guys clearly know the meta and have survived this brutal gauntlet, but even with these try-hard tactics, the survival rate hovers at a brutal 30%. The examiner knows their little turtle formation is going to snap under the pressure. What the officials realize that only a Wingcrest prodigy can flex. In the middle of the chaos, players notice Aster just standing completely frozen. They immediately write him off as a clueless noob who has completely given up on life. Even his own cousin Grian smirks, thinking Aster is about to get wiped off. But the absolute second a swarm of arrows dives right for his face, Aster casually swats them away like annoying bugs. Jaws literally drop as Aster channels his raw mana into a violent tornado, shredding the projectiles to dust. He effortlessly keeps the cyclone spinning, leaving the surrounding survivors whispering about what kind of freak he actually is, since not a single blade even scratches his clothes. Up in the stands, the examiner is genuinely stunned. Aster is weaving his mana so smoothly, it looks like he is the eye of a literal hurricane. The deadly downpour finally wraps up, and the examiner is honestly shocked that so many players managed to stay alive. He claps for the survivors, congratulating them on clearing Phase 1, blatantly stepping over the fresh bodies decorating the floor. But there is zero time to catch their breath. He immediately herds the traumatized group toward the second stage. Smite heaves a massive sigh, totally burned out, muttering that this examiner is a literal demon spawned from hell. Aster just tilts his head, genuinely confused how Smite is already gassed from a few measly arrows. Smite looks at Aster like he is insane, completely baffled that the guy is not even breaking a sweat. The examiner is taking notes too, highly impressed that Aster's mana tank looks completely full, despite casting that massive storm. It is absolute proof that the 7 wings hit entirely different, making the examiner super hyped to see Aster snap. Meanwhile, Gran is fuming, absolutely sick to his stomach that his cousin is still breathing. He flashes back to a shady order from a shadowy VIP commanding him to sabotage Aster's Royal Knight dreams at all costs, supposedly to protect the Elmheim legacy. The examiner drops a new rule. Everybody has to ditch their personal weapons and grab basic identical swords to keep the playing field totally level. Smite is prompting Aster to ask if they used to run things differently. Smite turns and says, Normally, these guys wouldn't sweat a single second over a bunch of basic. But Smite points out the heavy tension in the air, all because Aster's bizarre, sketchy-looking blade is totally creeping everyone out. Right on cue, Grian crashes the scene to troll Aster. He flashes a cocky smirk mocking him for somehow picking up a pathetic little minion. Hearing himself called a lackey Smite, but that anger evaporates. The second Grian leans in close, dropping a chilling whisper right into his ear. He darkly warns the guy that wagging his tail for the wrong master is going to end in absolute agony. Smite starts trembling like a leaf. He frantically backpedals, practically begging the guy to take the threat back, but Grian completely blanks him. In full panic mode, Smite actually throws Aster straight under the bus, swearing up and down that they aren't even associated. Aster quietly scans the room, feeling the icy glares piercing right through him. Yeah, he is completely surrounded. Suddenly, the head proctor steps up to lay down the law. He announces that the second trial is going to be an all-out siege war. The rules: they are getting split into 3 massive squads, forced to clash in the deep woods to hijack each other's bases. The objective is dead simple. You officially conquer an enemy camp the second your squad's banner is hoisted high on their flagpole. And the ultimate